Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Purposeful Conversations with Emmy here in the PAMI Code Facebook group. And today we're being joined by a very special guest. She's a trauma recovery coach and she helps women survivors of domestic abuse and sexual assault to move past their past and create a vibrant life. There's so much that we can learn from today's conversation, particularly around having resilience, and even if you experience abuse and trauma, that you can actually still lead a vibrant and happy life. So without further ado, let's all welcome Tracey Osborne. Tracey, hello.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's a really interesting conversation that we'll have today, and I hope that a lot of our community members will find value from this. Whether or not they experience domestic abuse themselves, I'm sure that there's so much that we can learn about resilience, courage, and strength. Especially from your experience as a trauma recovery coach. But before we get into that, since this is the group is called Living with Purpose, and I can see that you are actually living with purpose. What drove you to do something like this? What's your why? What's your purpose?
Uh, so it's been kind of a journey for the past, um, gosh, decade or so, trying to figure out who I wanted to be when I grew up. And it started out with just wanting to work from home and wanting to be there for my kids. So I started a virtual assistant company, and I was a virtual assistant and online business manager for over 10 years. Had a very successful company, but it got to the point where that was just no longer fulfilling. Um, I still wanted to help women, but not in that way. Um, and so, I kind of floundered a little bit trying to figure out where I wanted to go, what direction I wanted to go. And I created Daring Woman, which is um, my empowerment company, women's empowerment company. And that is really at this point, it's a digital magazine. It's a platform for women where they can just, share their voice, write their articles and whatever. Um, and that was great. I love it, and it's something that definitely fulfills part of me, but not all of me. Last May, my husband died unexpectedly of a heart attack, and um, in the weeks that followed, as I started trying to figure out what my new normal was, what was life going to be like after this horrible trauma. One minute I'm performing CPR, and the next minute I'm telling him goodbye. And it was I didn't know what to do. But that is what really made me realize that this is where I need to be. Um, because of my past with domestic abuse and sexual assault and rape, I know what it's like to have to pull yourself out of those ashes and rise again, kind of like a phoenix. Um, but I also know how difficult that is. And I know that you can't really, you can talk to, a therapist, and I definitely think you should with any trauma, but they don't get it unless they've experienced it.
Hmm.
And so, because I've experienced it, I've experienced childhood trauma, I've experienced emotional abuse, I've experienced grief in multiple ways. I can better connect to these women and help them to just realize there is life after trauma.
That's wonderful. And it's actually your desire to do something meaningful, something that adds value to the lives of women. Yes, you had a successful company as a virtual assistant, you're making money, but it doesn't give you that sense of fulfillment anymore. And so you're doing this also
Yeah.
tapping into your personal experience and your willingness to serve other women because you've been through that. From your experience,
Mhm.
what helped you to get out of that situation? How did you how did you pull yourself out of domestic abuse and sexual assault?
Oh goodness. Well, I've experienced multiple cases. Um, I kind of seem to attract that type of man for quite a while. Um, and so it got to the point where I knew the red flags. And when I saw those red flags, I could get out quickly before it escalated. Now I finally figured out, okay, as soon as I see those red flags, if I'm dating somebody, it's like, bye, see ya, if I have any alarms going off, I'm out of here.
Give us some
Um,
ideas, because some people
and
aren't aware of these red flags. Sometimes they might be experiencing abuse without them even realizing that this is abuse. So, can you give us some
yeah,
telltale
it starts
signs,
out
just warning
subtle.
signs?
Yeah, it starts out really subtle. Um, things such as, um, I really think you should wear that red dress, or you know, I don't want you to have your girls' night out anymore because I love you so much and I want to spend all my time with you. Little things like that where it just seems like um, they love you so much that they just, they want to be with you all the time, or, it's just little ways to control you and begin to isolate you. Um, and then it kind of turns into you get into a fight and they start name calling, or um, maybe they shove you, or something like that. And then it's, I'm so sorry, honey. I promise I will never do something like that again. I don't know what has come over me, you know. And then it gets worse, and then it gets to be, well, you make me so mad. You made me hit you. You made me push you because you made me so mad. And so then you start thinking, God, you know, and you start walking on eggshells because you don't want to make them so mad anymore because it was your fault that they hurt you, or that they called you names, you know. So it's those little things. But when you're
It starts
dating,
very
it could be
subtle.
something. It's very subtle. They're really good at it. Um, and it could be something like, um, just trust issues. Who are you texting? Who's calling you? Why is John calling you at 9 o'clock at night? Well, he's my baby daddy, so So it's just little things like that that could send warning signals and maybe just kind of put you on your toes. Like, okay, I need to really kind of start watching this, and maybe I need to talk to somebody and see if this is what I'm experiencing is really something that could get worse.
Would it be um would it be a good idea to try to point it out to your partner when you notice these subtle behavior, or should you just talk to someone else before it escalates? What would be a good way to not for
I
it not to escalate?
Right. Um, I find a lot of times, so if you try to talk to your partner, they're going to start doing what's called gaslighting. And they're going to spin it around so it's on you, or they're going to try and make it seem like I've said before, where it's um, they just love you so much. They're just so in love with you that they don't want anybody to have time with you, or and that's how they isolate you. Um, but pretty soon they get you to where you're thinking it's you, it's all your fault, that there's something wrong with you. And that's called gaslighting when they start turning that around on you.
Mm,
So if you're noticing these subtleties, I would honestly recommend talking to a professional. You can call go to the National Domestic Hotline. There's a lot of information on their website. Um, I am working on gathering a lot more resources from my website, which is iambecomingher.org. Um, and you just kind of see, okay, well, maybe this is something
mm.
um, that I really want to watch. And you know. So what I find really happens, I mean, is that we get into kind of a denial. Well, he's just being overprotective because
Yeah,
he
because he
wants to make
loves
sure I'm
me.
safe.
And yeah.
Because he loves me. I am his world. Um, he's been hurt so much in the past. Maybe I can fix him.
Ooh,
Maybe if
these are
I love
some of
him
the beliefs
more and
that are
I,
recurring.
yeah, yeah. And so we kind of start brainwashing ourselves along with them kind of brainwashing us at the same time. Um, until one day you're waking up with a black eye going, how did he get to this point?
And
You
it
know?
yeah, from what I've read about domestic abuse, fortunately for me, I haven't seen it in my family. My parents are loving, and I haven't seen domestic abuse in
Good.
this way, or in my own family, with my husband. I've been fortunate, so I don't really know what it's like to experience sexual assault or that kind of domestic abuse. But it seems to me that domestic abuse is not just about physical abuse, or not even just verbal abuse. It could
Mm-mm.
be controlling behavior, maybe controlling the finances, controlling your time, controlling what you wear. And then it escalates into name calling, dehumanizing, and then eventually you get to see the physical abuse as well. But it sort of takes its form gradually. Is that what happens?
In most cases that I have seen or that I have heard about that I've experienced personally, yes, there are those that start physical faster, and there are those that never get physical. It's purely emotional abuse. Um, so it's a wide scale. There's no black or white. This is a very gray area, um, and it can contain sexual assault. Um, that's one way of them having power and control over us, is to, you're mine. Your body belongs to me, and I'm going to take it whenever I want, whether you like it or not. This isn't rape because we're married, right?
Mm.
Well, no means no, and no means rape. So, I don't care if you're married. I was my first assault when I was raped was with my living boyfriend. I said no. He continued. That is rape. I don't care. That's black and white right there. Domestic assault, without the physical, definitely there is some gray area because it can be a little bit harder to see when the fists aren't being raised.
Yeah. And from what you've seen from your experience, or for from the experience of the women you're helping, there are some cases where they find it quite difficult to get out of that situation, even if it's even if you can see that they have black eye, and they are, you can see the wounds, and they really have to get out there before they get themselves killed, and they refuse, or not necessarily refuse, but they find themselves stuck. What keeps them stuck, and what keeps them in that relationship for a long time?
Oh God, there's a lot of reasons, and you do see it all the time. I see it in, I'm in several domestic abuse groups on Facebook, and it's just, well, why don't you just get out? It's not always that easy. Um, they're not, believe it or not, emotionally ready. We become
Mm.
trauma bonded to our abuser, and we are so in, we're in love with them, and we think that we can just fix it, and we become really bonded to this person. They control us, they isolate us. So um next thing you know, you can't even contact friends and family because you'll get in trouble. They control the finances, so you have no way to leave because you have no money, you have no means of transportation maybe, or you know little things like that. Kids are a big one.
Mm.
I'm afraid if I leave, he'll get the kids. I'm afraid if I leave, he'll hurt the kids. He'll hurt me. He'll. because he said so many times, if I ever left him, he'd kill me.
Mm.
Um, so there are a lot of reasons why the women don't leave. And
Mm.
the biggest thing, excuse me, the biggest thing I can tell you, if you're on the outside looking in, you can't just say you've got to leave. I mean, you can say it, but chances are they're not going to really listen. You need to just kind of be there supportive, wait for them because they'll hit that point eventually. When they hit that point where they're ready to go, they know that they can contact you, that you're going to
Yeah.
be a safe place
It's
for them.
just being there to
Um,
be some kind of support, knowing that
yeah,
if they decide to leave, when they're ready to leave, then there will be people there who would
yeah,
support them. And you are right, it does take a bit of time and emotional endurance, because if you are in a relationship with someone, surely you've invested some emotions and time with this person, and to split up, that could be
absolutely.
quite difficult. And one of the chapters in my book, Fear is Not My Enemy, I did talk a little bit about domestic abuse. And fear is one of the underpinning reasons why some people who experience domestic abuse don't leave, because they have so many things to think about: their children, their finances, what would people think about them as well, like the fear of
Oh
judgment.
yeah,
It's because of the stigma of
judgment.
having to,
Yeah.
fear of uncertainty, and the fear of death as well. Some of them, they will get death threats for attempting to leave. So fear is an a huge factor why some women end up being in that position. They are paralyzed by the fear, and it does take a bit of time to process this. And for family, well-meaning family and friends who are encouraging them to get out of that relationship, sometimes they would stay, because it's almost like, I'm not ready, stop telling me what to do, I'm always being told what to do. You know what I mean? So what
Hmm.
what would you say to those well-meaning friends or family? They can see it's heartbreaking to see someone you love go through this kind of abuse, but what can you do to help them without telling them exactly what they should do?
Sure. Let them know you're there. The other thing too is that they may be afraid to talk about it for fear of their partner finding out that they're talking about it, because that will result in repercussions. But talk to them, let them know that you're there for them. You know, Emmy, I can see the bruises. I can see that you're scared. I know something's going on. I can't tell you to leave him, but I really think you should. When you get to that point where you need to leave or you want to leave and you don't know where to go, I am here for you. You call me and I will be there. That kind of thing. Let them know that you are there, that you are their support, because it is absolutely terrifying.
I've seen some cases,
Especially if they're
Tracy,
being
though.
financially
Yeah, I've seen some cases
sorry.
where it's too late. There are some family members who try to intervene, and the intervention is too late, and they end up blaming themselves for not getting their loved one out of that relationship. How can
Yeah.
a family member you know not what's the word I'm looking, prevent, how can you prevent that from happening? Is it possible to prevent that from happening?
Maybe not. um there's some people out there that they're very sick, they're very mentally ill, and you can take their person away, but they're going to come find them, they're going to track them down, they're going to look for them. So I mean, I don't want to discourage families from doing that, um by all means, but there are going to be cases, unfortunately, where it's going to be too late, it's going to escalate too far, and she's going to end up dead.
Mm.
Um, and you know, the hardest part is going to be remembering this is not your fault.
Mm.
Whether you're a family member, you're a friend, you're a victim, this is not your fault. It's not your fault that you stayed. It's not your fault that you got into this relationship. It's not your fault that you couldn't get your loved one out of this relationship. This is not your fault. It is 100% the fault of the abuser. And that's the hardest thing for people to really, I think, get through their heads.
Mm.
Um, what if? What
Yeah.
if I left? What if I got her out sooner? What if I said something, I did something, there's a lot of what if games that go on, um, and that's hard. You can what if until you're blue in the face, but it's not going to change things,
Mm.
you know.
And
So
Tracy,
you just
if
have to
someone
really remember
is,
that it's just not your fault.
yeah, that's actually a really good piece of advice, because there are people who will go through this self-blame cycle,
We
and you're
all do.
right, always
Oh, we all
asking,
do.
what if I did this, and what if I did that instead, and what if I behaved in a certain way.
Yeah.
And because they haven't done that, they end up blaming themselves for the situation that they are in. But it's not about you blaming yourself. It's actually the abuser's behavior that needs to be condoned, and not you for not for blaming yourself. But Tracy, if there is someone who's thinking about leaving um this abusive relationship, do you have like an exit strategy that you recommend to women? What steps do they need to do to prepare for an exit?
Yeah, definitely. You want to have a safety plan in place. If you can start squirreling away money, little bits here and there, do that. Hide it under the mattress or wherever you can hide it that they're not going to look. Um, you know, where are you going to go? How are you going to get there? What are you going to take? Chances are, if it's a very volatile situation, chances are you may very well leave with the clothes on your back and nothing else, or very little else. Um, you know, can you access your important documents, birth certificate, social security card for you, your kids, um, you know, that kind of thing. So you definitely want to start having kind of an exit plan, exit strategy for sure. If
Yeah.
you have people that you can go to that you trust, um, that you can say, I want to leave him. Here's my exit strategy. This is what I'm planning. Definitely talk to them, have them ready. If they're going to be your getaway driver or whatever, get them ready. And again, if you go to the National Domestic Abuse website, um, they have great. There's a lot of information on there, and also again on my website too. IamBecomingHer.org is. Um, I will have exit strategies on there, and lots of other information for you if you are ready to leave. Um, talk to the authorities if you need to, just whatever you need to do to get that exit strategy in place,
Yeah, I was
so
actually
that when
going to
you
ask if
do leave,
there's
you're
like
safe.
a resource where it's like a checklist, or like a plan to help you think through your circumstance, and how are you going to implement that strategy when you're ready to do it. Like, who are the
Yes.
people that you need to involve? What do you need to prepare in advance, financially, in terms of your
Hmm.
identity, and your children. So is yeah it would be wonderful if people can access a resource that will help them to plan ahead. And in terms of those
Yeah,
who
yeah. If you
do
go to
manage.
IamBecomingHer.com or .org, I'll have it right there on the homepage for you.
Awesome. Well, we'll
I'll
we'll
put
get
that.
the link later, and I'll put it in the description. So if anybody will need, if someone needs that resource, or if someone else who might benefit from reading that resource, it's free to check out on
Hmm.
your website. And Tracy, for those who
Yeah.
actually manage to successfully leave that domestic, that abusive relationship, and now they're starting to go through the healing process, I would assume that this is going to take a bit of time to heal. What are the first initial steps, apart from saying stop blaming yourself? How can they heal and recover from this?
And that could take years. The healing process can take years. Um, I still have my triggers, and you get to the point eventually where you know what your triggers are, and you can either avoid them or you learn how to
Man.
excuse me, how to deal with them. You know, um, the first steps, uh, once you know that you're safe, you're not going to be harmed anymore, and you can start putting the pieces together. I highly recommend you work with a professional therapist, counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, um, to deal with that immediate trauma. And they're going to help you to get through that immediate healing phase. I will come in, a bit later, and it will move from survivor into thriver. Whereas with a therapist, you're going to be moving from victim to survivor.
Mm.
Um, but, you know, one of the biggest things is forgiveness of yourself. That's one of the first things that I work with people is helping them to forgive themselves. You don't have to forgive your abuser or your assailant. Um, that is entirely up to you. That is a personal choice. Some people are able to, some people are not. But you need to forgive yourself. And when I say you need to forgive yourself, it's because we do get into that blame game. Why did I stay? Um, if only I was a better person, if I was a better wife, if I kept the house cleaner, if I had dinner ready at the right time, you know, all of this kind of stuff. We tend to pile all that blame on ourselves, and you need to slowly start working through and forgiving yourself. Um, the other thing that you really need to do is just accept that it happened. We live in denial for so long that you have to really just sit down and say, okay, this happened. I have to accept that this has happened. Um, don't have to like it, it's just what it is.
It's just part
But
of your story.
you can't heal. Yeah, you can't heal while you're still in denial. Um, so you have to accept that it has happened, and then from there you'll start moving on with, what do I do next? What is my new normal going to look like? Who am I now outside of this? Because you're not ever going to be the person that you were in that relationship or before that relationship. It's completely new. You got to figure out what that looks like.
Yes, and I like your
So
advice
those are
in
some.
terms of seeing a therapist initially, because yeah, you have to go through that kind of healing. You survived. It's almost like you're recovering from post traumatic stress. You
It is.
it's especially with that kind of environment, it's abuse, and in your case sexual assault. You actually do need a professional to help you to come to terms and make sense of how you're going to piece together yourself, your identity, and your life again. And once you've recovered from that phase, and then you can build your new life and thrive and flourish. But you need to heal
Right.
yourself first before you can
Hmm.
move on. In terms of
Yeah.
flourishing, are there particular activities or strategies that you help women with? What strategies would you recommend to help them to thrive, after this experience?
Um, so the world is your oyster, and now that you're on your own, you have a new life now. Um, you can do have be whatever you want, and that's part of the thriving and the flourishing is, um, everything that was shoved down in the past because you couldn't do it, they wouldn't let you, whatever, you can do now. Um, Self care is huge in recovery. Self care is very, very big. Um, and I don't just mean eating right and exercising, that definitely plays a big role. A lot of women, especially in domestic abuse situations, maybe want to take self defense classes so
Mm.
that they can learn some basic self defense that helps them to feel safer.
Yeah, and it
Um,
can boost
I
the
think
the
it's fantastic.
confidence as
It's
well.
empowering. Yes, it's empowering to know that you can protect yourself. Um, and yeah, you just start creating. You create the life that you want now. That dream
Yeah,
life that you
it's
had when
almost
you were
like giving
a
you the
little
permission to
girl.
dream again, and to imagine what
Yeah.
what kind of life you want to live, and go for it,
Hmm.
because now you
Yeah.
can.
Absolutely.
Because but
Absolutely.
it's
It's
probably
not going to be easy
easier.
by any stretch. But
Yeah, it's probably easier said than done, especially for those who are still in the recovery phase, because when you've been wounded, emotionally, it does take a bit of time to get your self-esteem back, to be
oh,
able to dream. It does take a bit of healing, but once you've healed and
mhm,
once you realize that actually, yeah, you are out of that situation and now you are free, then yeah, you can dream and create the life that you want.
right. Right.
So,
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a journey. It's not overnight. It's not going to happen immediately. This is your healing journey. And that's the other thing. This is your healing journey, not your parents, not your friends, yours. So don't ever let anybody tell you how to heal and the timeline to heal, because that is incredibly personal. And nobody has that right to tell you what your healing journey is supposed to look like.
wonderful. Well, Tracy, if you have any final words that you'd like to share, with members of our community, or actually even for those who have been through this process, maybe they are still in an abusive relationship, or maybe they've already gotten out of that situation and they're still starting to heal, what would you like to say to
Sure.
them?
I think the biggest thing is I want to remind you, ladies, that you're not alone. No matter what your situation is, whether it's domestic abuse or anything else, you're not alone. There are women out there who are going through something similar, regardless of whatever it is, if it's, a health threat or anything, handicap, whatever. There are other women out there. You're not alone. And the second thing I want to remind you is that there is hope. There is hope, and there is life after trauma. So just hang in there. It does
Wonderful.
get easier.
Thank you, Tracy. So yes, just a reminder that you're not alone. There are, you're not the only one who's going through this. There are also others who are going through this, and there is hope. I think Tracy's story is an example that there is life after domestic abuse and sexual assault. And if you do need help, and whenever you're ready, to make your exit, there will be those who will be able to help you. I mean, Tracy, could you tell people where can they find your website, and if they need any further support, if they'd like to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is iambecomingher.org. And that's the easiest way to just get over there. All my contact information is on that website. We've got free resources and a daily trauma support group that you can join, and all kinds of things over there. So yeah, definitely head over there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Tracy, and thanks everyone for tuning in. It was quite a heavy conversation that we had today. as I've said, for me, fortunately, I haven't really seen domestic abuse in my family, but I've heard of stories, for me as a psychologist, as a community psychologist, I've heard of stories of women and actually even some men who go through domestic abuse, and
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
it's not it's not that they are just there and staying in that relationship because they want to be abused. It's not an easy thing. It takes a bit of time. It takes
right.
courage, and there's a lot of fear surrounding these circumstances. So for us, family and friends, just be there for those people who might be experiencing this, and reassure them that when they are ready, it does take a bit time. When they are ready, then you will also be there to support them. But anyway, again, thank you, Tracy. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch up again
Thank
next time for
you.
another purposeful conversation here in the PAMI Code Facebook group. Until then, take care and bye for now. Bye.